Hello and welcome to the Body Resilient Mum podcast. I'm your host, Louise Hurley, and I am here to elevate your body image one conversation at a time. Most of us have grown up believing that a thinner, smoother, tighter body and face is better. And if we have these things, then we have succeeded and will live happily ever after. When we've been surrounded by this message all of our lives in some form or other, we tend not to question it. It's just the way of the world. But have you ever stopped to wonder whether these standards that we've been holding ourselves to are even possible to achieve? And if we do try to match these standards, like losing weight or trying to remain wrinkle and dimple free, is it actually healthy? As mums, we feel under so much pressure to succeed in all areas of life, including trying not to look like we've grown and birthed a tiny human. This podcast will encourage you to challenge your long-term beliefs about what your body should look like and help you to move from a place of conflict with your body to a place of peace and acceptance. Yay! Welcome back to another episode of the Body Resilient Mum. I am joined today by Sierra Ryland. I'm so excited to have you here, Sierra. Thank you so much for joining me. Not only are you a fascinating person to talk to because of what you coach and what you do, but also, not that an accident wants to make, we don't want to be fascinating from an accident, but oh my God, what a story you have got. So I wanted to interview you because not only, like I said, are you a wonderful, fascinating person, but your story just resonates with me and kind of how we appreciate our bodies. And I wanted to talk to you and dive into that a little bit more today. So to start with, hello, you can talk now. I've just taken up all your talking space.
Kia ora. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for having me on. So my brand or business is Sparkle Fitness, and my aim is to help mums get back into running and triathlon. That's like my ultimate or long-term business goal of where I see the business. But as part of that, I also do personal training and group classes as well. So sometimes I sort of flutter between saying that I coach women and that I coach mums. It's one of those things where actually most women are mums. So let's just embrace that side of it. But I do on occasion help young women. And one of my roles outside of this is I do a lot of coaching for like daughters netball teams, the junior sections of my running club, and the triathlon club as well. So I guess there is a little bit of, right from young through to older age. Yeah.
And your passion, Sierra, you are like do you say triathlete or triathlon runner? Is it
say triathlete.
Okay.
Yeah, triathlete for people who do triathlons. Yeah. I'll call myself that now. I was a runner, but then I basically wasn't good enough for running according to my own standards. But then was quite good at triathlon because it's one of those things where if you're good at three things, you're great at triathlon. So that was my philosophy. I don't have to be great at any one thing. I can just be good at everything, which is kind of the story for my life, really, like good at everything. Quite an all-rounder.
But you're absolutely incredible because you've also done how many Ironmans?
I've done 5 Ironman. The last one was the Ironman World Championships in Kona in 2016. So that was my last one because then that's when the following year, pregnant, had my daughter. And then I returned to the half Ironman distance, but haven't quite made it back to the full Ironman distance because it does require quite a bit of training. And when you have a young family, that is quite hard to fit in. But yeah, I can fit in. Well, I'll say it's hard to fit in depending on your goal. When I have certain performance goals, yes, it is quite hard to fit in. People do fit it in. But yeah, the 70.3 distance or the half Ironman distance is kind of my forte at the moment.
For anyone listening who doesn't know what an Ironman is, could you just briefly explain what it is?
Yeah. Ironman is basically a brand, but it's what we use to now describe long distance triathlon. So your shorter distance triathlons are called like your sprints, Olympic distance, because that's the distance that's in the Olympics. And that's your middle distance. And then your longer distance, your Ironmans and your half Ironmans. So a full Ironman is a 3.8 kilometer swim, 180 kilometer bike ride, and 42.2K run or a marathon. And then the half is not necessarily straight half, but 2K swim, 90K bike ride, and a half marathon run. So yeah, it's basically combining those three those three things. And there's a reason why it's like a marathon in those certain distances, because when Ironman started, they took three of the endurance sports at the time and combined those distances together, and that's how it came to be, like those random collection of numbers. Yeah.
So, I mean, that is just insane that you have done that 5 times and then continued to do half Ironmans. And I can 100% believe how hard it is once you've got a family to then dedicate that time. Because not only have you then got to have that whole weekend away to compete, but all that time training for that as well. So difficult. So you have juggled that
Mm.
so well. You were pretty active then, Sierra, like after having children still, you managed to set aside the time and train well. Um, and then recently you had an accident. Could you take us through that if you're happy to, like talk us through what happened?
Yeah, absolutely. It's not so much the accident that's traumatic for me anymore. It's actually the recovery that, believe it or not, that is more traumatic. But the I was doing a race called the Tough Guy and Girl, which I think is also the equivalent to things like the Tough Mudders, an obstacle mud run course. And I do this every year as a bit of fun, for my as basically a favour to my personal trainer, because he always likes to be the top club, and you get to be the top club if you get the fastest male and female runners. For the last 3 years in a row, I've won the event. So hence it's like, yes, keep coming back so you can at least win the event. And I never win the event necessarily because I'm in the best physical shape or even best like fitness, because it's after the triathlon season. I'm usually really tired and just needing a break, but I just like climbing over the walls, jumping around in the mud. Like that is fun, and it is also fun when I win it. But part of the course in the Wellington one involves a very steep downhill. They basically call it the Everest. You climb up it. It's so steep you need ropes to climb up, and then basically you go down the other side. I'm relatively confident with downhill running, so I do run down that hill, unless it's so slippery, in which case it's so steep it becomes a slide. You slip over and you just slide down the end. So that's how steep it is. So it's not really runnable, but you can if you know how,
Yeah.
and you're not scared. But what happened this year was I ended up in second place. So, not a mentality that I've been in for this run. So, when I got to that downhill, I then thought, I'm really going to go hard down this hill to catch up to first place because I'm a good downhill runner. She's not, all that sort of strategy. Strategic thinking that starts to come in. But no sooner had I thought that, then I basically heard snap, snap, and I fell over to the side of the course. Along with, when I felt the snap, it felt like something had hit my knees, but there's nothing around. Like there was nothing to that I fell into. I didn't trip. I didn't fall. At the time, I didn't know what had happened, so I just fell over, sort of screamed in pain, because especially as a runner or even like a fit person, you kind of know if something goes wrong with the knees, it's like quite a big deal. And you hear all those stories, professional athletes usually in the news, ACL things, all this sort of stuff, and then they just forever have problems. So that was what was going on in my mind, was, oh my God, I'm ruined. But then the pain went away, and then I thought, oh, I've just overreacted. I must have just buckled or, done something weird that was initially painful, but then fine. So I tried to roll over. I was on my stomach, and so then I tried to roll over, and then the worst pain in my life, worse than childbirth. And then, of course, only women get to say that sort of stuff. But it was absolutely, pass out pain sort of thing. And then I could see my knees and I could see the swelling. I could see that the kneecaps were not where they should be. The paramedics came up and said, just most likely dislocated. That wasn't exactly a comforting thought because the level of pain that it took to even just move like that was excruciating. But then they started poking around, and then they were just, this isn't what we think a dislocation looks like. And then getting confused by the fact that I wasn't in pain unless I moved. So they're going, is it a dislocation or is it a knee injury? Dislocation, yeah, you do something, get the pain, but then you're not in pain, and then they're just going to pop it back in. Knee injury, they're expecting there to be some kind of ongoing pain. We got me off the course, and at the time, like, everyone's still careening down past me. And because I'm at the front of the course, like, everyone else still has to come past as all this is happening. In some ways, the organisers were joking because they're like, well, it made people slow down, because this isn't exactly a course where you necessarily come out unscathed, just not normally this bad. And got me into the ambulance, and again, lots of talks about what's going on. It doesn't look like a dislocation, but we're not sure what else it could be. Get me to the hospital, and then x-rays, boom. 2 bilateral patellar fractures. So basically both my kneecaps had snapped in half. And very evenly so, which is an unusual thing for any injury, really, but especially a running injury. Leads to all sort of theories about why it happened. Like, the physio joked how strong are your quads that they snapped your kneecaps, because it is something that happens when your knee is in a bent position. So normally you fall, say, onto concrete, or car crashes can do it, like as the dashboard goes into the knee. So very unusual to do it in the way that I described, and then also for both to happen. The good news was, apparently, I only broke my kneecaps, so that's good news. The bad news is I did both. So then it meant I had to sit in a wheelchair with straight legs for 6 weeks while the bones started to heal. And basically that just really meant I couldn't do anything. I was either sitting or I was lying. And when your legs are straight, even though my arms are still good, there's not a hell of a lot of other stuff I can physically do, because everything's just so awkward. So yeah, then begins the very long journey now of recovering, not just regaining strength, but healing the bone on a joint. Well, I guess it's not necessarily the joint muscle, but it's on a joint, so there's a lot of movement around it. Then having to manage everything else that is happening that goes along with the injury, such as the lack of mobility due to all the swelling and due to having to sit in a certain position for so long. So I'm literally learning to walk again, and do all of those kind of movements again. And they've said that could be up to a year before I'm back to normal. Normal again. But the good news, a full recovery is predicted, because I didn't do any other massive damage to any tendons or ligaments. So yeah, good news, but just a super long recovery, and a very immobile recovery in some ways. Like, if I had one good leg, that would have, changed things completely. So yeah, that's where we're at now. So I can walk, climb up stairs, but I definitely can't jump, but I can't even, like, put my foot down to like say catch my balance. So single legged exercises or activities are quite a high risk, because there are a lot of things that you don't realize that you're actually falling. Like even when you're walking and coming onto one leg, you are technically falling there for a little bit. So that's the thing that I have to work on to control and build up to those things where you're putting your more stress and impact through the body, because my knee buckles under that impact, basically due to the lack of strength from being immobile for so long.
This sounds like an absolute nightmare of a roller coaster, especially Sierra, being as you were so active
Yeah.
before and now you're learning to walk again. Just incredibly
Mm.
hard. And you're just the most amazing person to have the attitude that you have. Like I can imagine. Oh, no, I can't imagine. It'd be so hard. I remember when you first said that, oh, this is what I've done, and you took photos, and it was on social media that you'd broken your knees. And I was there with this little wrist fracture, feeling sorry for myself. And I saw you, I was like, oh, this is nothing. Like, I've got to stop feeling sorry for myself.
I know it's all relative, isn't it? But I said to you, I think when we saw each other like a month or so ago, like then I had that exact thought in hospital, looking across the aisle at the little old ladies, because I'm kind of in better shape than they are, but
Yes.
a lot of it is to do with the fitness and the strength and the young age.
Yeah.
But yeah, if ever there was I guess, a reason to do your strength training, it's you don't want to be that person who, not in this my case, but say falls over and breaks a hip, and then you actually can't do anything, even when the hip injury isn't really the thing that's preventing you from doing the things to look after yourself. So yeah, a little bit of a reality check, I guess, is always with when you see other people and go, okay, well, I'm not that bad. But don't get me wrong, there was definitely like, moments where like I literally went from 100 miles an hour to zero.
Yeah.
There was no preparation for this at all. So then the brain now just has to immediately process what has happened. And of course, that is where all the grief, it was definitely like 5 stages of grief sort of stuff that you're
Mhm.
processing to try to come to terms with it. And that's what makes it, I guess, so hard when you don't have an answer for why it happened. I don't have osteoporosis. I don't seem to have weak bones for any other reason. Um, there's sort of nothing to explain why, and I feel from a closure point of view, that's the difficult thing to
Absolutely.
reconcile.
Yeah,
Mm.
absolutely. And we're talking kind of now about post injury and like where your mindset is, or like how you've been affected psychologically. If we shift that onto body image, Sierra, like
Mm.
how has this affected your relationship with your body? Like, has it changed the way you see what your body can do or how you appreciate it? We've kind of touched upon it already, but has it had an impact?
Yeah. I think it definitely has had an impact, um, and I can't say that it's always for the positive either, because there are definitely, like I said before, like you look across the aisle at the little old lady who's broken her hip, and you can appreciate what you can still do, and in hospital even I was still doing some form of exercise, because what I knew would happen was that now I was going to become really reliant on my shoulders and upper body to do everything all of a sudden. And I mean, we all as trainers know what happens when you have to overuse something. That's when it gets injured. So this didn't mean, okay, I'm going to wheel around in a wheelchair. That's not actually going to be all hunky dory. My shoulders are going to get screwed from that. So I was even just doing some banded exercises, stuff to work on my shoulder blades and scapula and all of that sort of stuff. Trying to keep as much core strength as could. Like in the hospital bed, I'd wake up in the morning, because you wake up super early because it's just noisy. You still got like an hour for breakfast, so I'd do like some thigh squeezes and calf squeezes, then little mini sit-ups in bed, and then a few shoulder exercises, and that was my morning routine. And the way I sort of worked in the hospital was I had a lot of time to think about things. So then I just went into, I guess, in some ways, survival mode. And what can I control? I can't control what I can do for exercise now, apart from those little things. The only really thing I can control is what I eat. So then that did become a very big focus for me in the hospital. And that isn't necessarily a good thing, because you can see how easy it is to take that stuff too far. I think I did actually lose weight in the hospital, because when someone's just bringing me food and you just tick the boxes and say what you want, I just wasn't eating anything extra, and I couldn't get up to get anything extra. So yeah, so that in some ways it was kind of really giving me some eye openers into how much, I guess, mindless snacking I might do during the course of a day. But when you're not exercising to kind of balance out the energy in, energy out at a very basic thing, it was like, well, I do have to change how I'm eating. And that's something I've never really been very good at, because I've always been able to exercise. But what then happens when I got home, and as I became more mobile, I think was less depressed. But then that's the dangerous territory for comfort eating. So then I have a real struggle now with, I can do some stuff, but I still can't do what I'd normally do. So then I can see myself putting on weight, and then have this very real struggle with, am I okay with this? Because it's something that I've never been okay with. So I would be kidding myself if now all of a sudden I'm like, yeah, I'm perfectly okay with putting on some weight, because it's perfectly understandable. But that is, I think, the very real struggle of understanding that I'm not in my normal situation, and I need to give myself, I guess, a little bit more kindness, because I don't want to get stuck in a scenario where I hyper restrict what I eat, because that's not going to be good for my recovery either. So yeah, it's a very hard mental battle, because I'm still in my 40s. I've still had years of conditioning, and that's something that's not just going to be, you're not going to flick a switch overnight and just go, yep, this is the new way of doing things, because one, that requires a lot of mental energy anyway. Some days I'll have that energy, some days I won't have that energy. So what I'm trying to focus on more is the process rather than the end result, and go, for example, my aim is to do 30 minutes of something every day. And it might be I jump on my bike for 30 minutes. I'll go for a swim. I'll do my strength, because I can still do quite a lot of strength exercises, and lifting some weights. I just have to be careful how I do it. So there is still that element of that physical activity, and at least getting stronger, because I think a lot of my mental mindset is not that I've put on weight. It's the lack of conditioning that I'm now facing, which I've never faced that aspect of it before. And the body looks different.
Yes. So you can feel it, you can see it, and it's kind of an accumulative kind of experience that you're experiencing with food as well.
Yeah.
It sounds to me, Sierra, like you were quite an intuitive eater before, and now it requires a bit more thought because your activity levels have changed. Is that right?
It would be. I'd say it was I've always been brought up to finish everything on our plate. My family was always quite restrictive in the terms of we didn't have a lot of food, or a lot of options. Um, so the problem is if someone puts something in front of me, I still eat it all, regardless of whether I need it or not. But I was always able to, I guess, bring some kind of mindfulness to it, or going, well, I am an endurance athlete training this, I like my chocolate as well. So at some point we just have to go. That's what I enjoy. But it's hard because I've always been doing some form of activity, like real high levels of physical output, to now kind of change that. That's quite a big change to do. So you can know the theory and you can know, why or what you have to do, but there is still a lot of emotion or habit tied in to what I was doing before. And that's, I think, the hard part to change, especially now that I'm more mobile. So a lot of before it was, well, I just can't get it. So, at the end of the day, you're like, well, I can't get it. So
Yeah.
if someone's put the chocolate out of reach, I can't get it. No matter what I do, I'm not going to be able to get it. Now I can. Things have kind of returned to normal in terms of that side of thing. It's the exercise levels that haven't returned to what they were. And as I say, it's the deconditioning aspect of it more than the weight loss. Like my legs actually look really slim, but not in a good way. Like when all that's left, I say it like this, like they should have fat on them, but when all that's left is fat, you have no tone,
Yeah.
and it makes the way your legs look and hold and sit just
Hmm.
look abnormal, and that's the part that is quite self-conscious. My husband, it was my birthday the other day, and he bought me these dresses for a holiday that we're going on soon to Fiji, and one was quite a short dress, and my first thought was, oh my god, I don't want to wear that because it's going to show off my knees and my thighs, and they just look horrible to me at the moment, or unfamiliar to me. That's not what I think they look like. Yeah. So yeah, that's quite a hard thought, I think, when all of a sudden things change. And it's probably similar in some ways to when you have your baby and you've got that new postpartum
Going to
body.
food. Yep.
I remember my brother, he was like, why have you still got your tummy? And then his wife slapped him because she'd already had kids, and she's like, it doesn't go away immediately. But in some ways, it was a good point because I don't think I'd really comprehended that it was still going to be there. I think maybe like, when was it? Oh, I can't remember how long, maybe like a month later, say, it was still, larger. And you're like, well, there's no baby in there. So why are you still looking like that? Yeah. Um, so, yeah, but it doesn't help when it's that exact area as well that a lot of attention is given to in social media and I mean, in my age, women's magazines and stuff. And then, so when you get comments about your abdominal area, it's just reinforcing everything that you've, I guess, read or been brought up with, that you're trying really hard not to let be, I guess, how you define yourself.
Mm.
So it's really unhelpful when other people, even when it's innocent, but yeah, they're reinforcing those things. That can be very, very challenging. And of course, you're acutely aware of it. You're sitting there like looking at it pretty much all the time.
More so than anyone else's as well. Like you think that it
Mm,
is the worst thing ever that anyone could ever see, and nobody else would even notice. But for you, it's that thing. And yeah, I was going to say I don't want to liken breaking both kneecaps to having a baby, but this part of your journey is so similar to that postnatal period where you can feel so unfamiliar in this body that is now
yeah.
slightly different or very different for some people. Do you feel like your experience of your injury and your rehab, do you feel like it's affected kind of you being a mum and your body image? And I guess also, Sierra, how you talk to your clients as well about their bodies?
Yeah.
Has it changed that at all?
It probably has changed a little bit in terms of, I mean, when I became a parent, given some of the things that like my parents had inadvertently said to me that stick with me to this day, and affect my confidence, I then wanted to be really careful about what I said in front of my daughter or comment on her body, to her, because it was like that one comment can stick with you for the rest of your life. Uh, so yeah, I've always been tried to be very aware of that, and even in doing so, like my daughter is still like she's at the age now, she's 7, has started wandering around in crop tops, and I see her looking in the mirror and sucking in her tummy, and I'm thinking, where does this come from? So it's you can try to do the best you can, but there are still all those external factors that are still driving that behavior. And but what shocked me was when I was 7, was not doing that. So my concern is how young this stuff now is becoming, even with all this progression. Um, there are still a lot of sort of those things, those aspects that are now perpetuated by the accessibility to things of social media, that people see these things more, whereas you still had to buy a magazine when I was younger to get it. So that didn't happen until I was a teenager. So in some ways, you were sheltered, from a certain point, unless I guess your parents bought you teenagers when you were young, or you read the Woman's Weekly or something with your parents. But that's coming through a lot longer. So I'm trying to be, when she asks me things like, "Do I look pretty?" Um, I ask her, why is that important to you? Because it's like, yeah, well, you can look nice and you can take pride in your appearance, but why are you wanting me to acknowledge whether you look pretty or not? And especially, yeah, when I see her sucking in her stomach and like putting on the crop tops and going, do I look pretty? Um, yeah, but then how I deal with my clients, because I had, even before this, tried to focus more on a process or a result. And it's some of the things that I know you talk about in your courses or in other, talks that I've seen you given with MumSafe, is, if you want to lose weight because you want to run faster for a 5K time, that's a bit of a different story than just say, I want to lose 10 kilos. It's like where's the 10 coming from? What's the reason for the number? A lot of the time, it's actually maybe like, oh, because this is where I was before I had got pregnant, or before a certain event. And is that actually realistic to get back to, or if we take away 10 kilos, is that going to make you feel better, or are you still going to look at your body and go, I need to lose another 5 and then I'll be happy? Because I know even in my own experience that never worked. But I go back and look at photos of myself and go, oh, I looked really good then. Why didn't I appreciate that at that time? Anyway, benefit of hindsight. But what this injury has actually made me realize is, in some ways, a little bit more harshly, is that I am not prevented from doing anything, but I can still do things even in my current state. So a lot of what my clients face, or what anyone will face, is more to do with mindset than the physical, ability. So you can be in a wheelchair and still do something. Um, and that was where I came back to the process of, as long as I'm moving in the right direction, things will right itself. But I just have to be more comfortable with that. It's going to take a longer process of time to do that than it would be if I was fully active and doing my normal course of things. So in some ways, it's kind of made me a little bit, yes, I'm incredibly, I guess, empathetic now to people who have had injuries. But at the same time, I also know that the biggest hurdle is still the mindset. It's not actually, I've hurt my back, so I can't come to PT, really, because there are still things that we can do. And most of the time, even in my case, movement is better. It's just you
Yes.
have to scale back what the movement is.
You have to be clever
Yeah.
with it and smart. And that's where you come
Yeah.
in. Your clients don't have
Yeah.
to
And
navigate
that's
on
where
their
the
own.
value is meant to be. Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
So, Sierra, to wrap up, if you imagine that, your ideal clients are out there listening to you now, of course they are. What is the one message that you'd like to leave them with when it comes to appreciating what their body can do for them, even when, like you just said, they're limited with either recovery or injury or, just had a baby, say? What message would you like to leave them with?
I think what really helps is reflecting and knowing why you're doing what you're doing, whether it's, say, like a performance goal, or whether it's, I want to get back to this after having a baby. For me, whether it's, I actually set the goal of I'm going to do an Ironman, but I just haven't said when. Um, but it's all about that sort of reflection and rewarding those small milestones as they happen. I'm definitely at fault of, if I don't do the big thing, I don't recognize the small things, but I can now walk upstairs. I can now walk downstairs. I can now drive. 6 weeks ago, I wasn't walking. So all those things are worth celebrating and realizing how far I've come. And I say that now, and this is where I start getting emotional, because it is that recovery part of it. And when you kind of look back and realize, in some sense, how broken you were,
Mm.
it is quite a big deal. Um, and that's what I haven't given myself credit for in the past, whether it's been the knees, whether it's been um, post birth recovery, even just uh, in the normal course of my life, if I come second in something, or, like being really hard on myself for not achieving a certain result. And then what I learned as I got older is, you trust the process, you follow the process. The result may not be what you had hoped for, but the result is the result of the process you followed. So if you are following the process, you will get the result. Now, obviously, you can tweak the processes, but for example, I wouldn't be like, I'm going to win an Ironman tomorrow and then
Mm.
be angry that I didn't win the Ironman tomorrow. It's like the process I'm following at the moment is not going to enable that. But the process I am following at the moment is going to get me to be able to do a squat, which means I can get up off the couch without using my hands, that sort of stuff. And that's really big milestones. And in some ways, that's probably more relatable to a lot of people, because I know clients who can't get up off the couch without using their hands, and there's nothing broken in them. Celebrate the small milestones, trust the process, and consistently follow the process, and you will have lifelong success.
Yeah. With that patience as well that you've had, even though you might not feel patient sometimes, but with that patience. I don't know.
No.
But as a coach, I feel like I give really good advice, but I do not follow it. I don't apply it to myself. Yeah, we're so harsh on ourselves, and yet we can give like beautiful sound advice. Snap.
Yeah,
It sounds like
it's
you're
easy.
doing that now.
Yeah, it's easy when you have objectivity. When it's yourself, you never have objectivity.
Yeah,
And that's why I have to be reminded by other people, like, how far I come.
yeah,
And I have other people, I think, like you said at the start, about, saying like inspirational, but because of my knees, and they'll be like, you're so inspiring. I can't believe your attitude, how positive you are. And I say to them, yeah, I'd rather not be inspiring because of this. But in the same way, I'm kind of doing that compliment a disservice, because it is a huge compliment to be able to carry myself in this way.
yeah.
But, there will be bad days, but at the same time, this is still part of the process. Like, I tick those things off, like I said, each day that I try to do. And then that's what keeps me positive about this, because I do see progress. It's not always as quickly as I would hope, but it is still progress nevertheless. And then that's what keeps me positive when I talk to people about it. Although, as you saw before, it is hugely emotional when you are a very active person, and a lot of my life's accomplishments are based around sporting achievements, to then have that part of it taken away. Like, actually, when I gave birth to my daughter, having that aspect of my life taken away for a period was very traumatic to deal with. So, yeah.
I love that. Thank you. And if people want to find you, we didn't even say at the beginning, you're based in New Zealand. If people
I'm
want
based
to,
in New Zealand.
how can they find you physically and online as well?
So my website is sparklefitness.co.nz, and I'm on Facebook and Instagram on Sparkle Fitness NZ. And then if people want to connect with me in person, Wellington, New Zealand. Otherwise, I do online running triathlon programs, so that's all done online anyway. And we also run some group classes here as well in Wellington.
Your programs are online, so people don't have to work with you if they're in Australia.
No,
well,
no, and the reality is with running in triathlon, we're not dealing with high performance, aspects of as in high performance sport. So people aren't paying me to come with them. So any coaching program is always going to be online in that regard. So I can help people in Australia, wherever. They've just got to basically have that running or triathlon goal or event that they're working towards. Yeah.
Amazing. Definitely worth checking out if you're a runner or you want to get into running, especially after you've had a baby. Sierra, thank you so much for joining me. That was amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
If you've enjoyed what you've heard, make sure you hit follow wherever you listen to your podcasts, rate and review, so that more mums can start to challenge societal norms when it comes to what their body should look like. For further information on what I've covered in this episode, or to connect with me in person, head to the link in the show notes. You'll also find the link to enrol in my online course, The Body Resilient Mum Project. Until next time, bye for now.